Hi everyone, it's Dee from Gastrofork here. Today we're switching it up and I'm taking you along to a recent bourbon tasting I did at Dixies BBQ. I was invited by Jim Beam Suntory to learn about where bourbon is made and some of the history behind it. So we started off with this super cool looking drink, the smoked peach Bellini that featured Knob Creek, peach puree, chocolate bitters, Prosecco, and alderwood smoke. Matt Jones walked us through a tasting and provided us some interesting backstory on bourbon and whiskey, so without further ado, I'll let him take it away.
It was the Irish that actually invented whiskey, or more accurately we say God invented whiskey to prevent the Irish from taking over the world. So far that's been a fact. The Scottish would say they perfected it, arguably so. I've got quite a few delicious single malts in my collection, but every whiskey around the world takes its inspiration from either the Scotch or Irish tradition. In fact, if you look at the spelling of whiskey in different countries, you'll notice that at least the five major ones, if there's an E in the spelling of the country, there will be an E in the spelling of whiskey. That's just a happy coincidence. It wasn't engineered to be that way. However, this kind of falls off the cliff when we start talking about New Zealand whiskey. There's two E's in there, but they spell it like the Scottish do. So in Canada, we spell our whiskey without the E because we took our lead from the Scottish tradition of making whiskey. In America, as we just stated, the Irish tradition. His name was Jacob Beam, and he was the first in the line of Beams to bring a legal whiskey to market. As important, legal whiskey, back in 1795, so 221 years ago. This family influenced the bourbon industry in a way that no other has. That's to say, at one time or another, all of the big distilleries that survived Prohibition were either founded, run, or managed by Beams. And when you talk to my boss, Freddie, the last guy in the bottle here, the seventh generation master distiller, the gatekeeper of the over 221-year tradition, you say, how is it that your family has been so influential in the bourbon industry? And he just reminds me, he's like, Matt, I'm talking about Kentucky. Y'all heard of Kissing Cousins? You open up the phone book in Kentucky, you will find a lot of Beams. Don't get away from that. He tells the jokes so I can say it. But at the end of the day, there's been over 30 distillers from the Beam family that have influenced all these different distilleries over time. So Suntory, that purchased us back in 2014. Suntory, of course, from Japan. Suntory pioneered the category of Japanese single malt. Back in 1919, Shinji Otori from the Suntory family sent his then master distiller, Masataka Takatsuno-san, to Scotland. And that's where he learned the tradition of Scottish whiskey. He stayed there for almost 3 years, actually married a Scottish woman named Rita. She came back to Japan with him, and then they established the very first whiskey distillery in Japan in 1923, Yamazaki, just outside of Kyoto. Now, it took a decade or so for the whiskey to really start to catch on. Fast forward 90 years, and Japanese whiskey is one of the top styles in the world. So very, very proud to be part of this family. Suntory has been a privately held, family-run company since 1899, so 117 years of tradition there. And again, together we are the third largest spirits company in the world, and we're the only spirits company that owns and operates distilleries in the 5 major whiskey producing regions. So Scotland, Ireland, Canada, America, and of course Japan. Okay? We take grains, we grind them up into coarse flour or grist, we convert the starches to sugars, we add yeast, we get a fermentation, and what beverage would that result in? Beer, you got it. Whiskey is made from beer. In fact, I say every beer that grows up wants to be a whiskey. The Irish dialect, Irish Gaelic, they called it Ishka Baha. Ishka is Gaelic for water, Baha is like breath of life. To be whiskey in Scotland, Ireland, and Canada, the law says you have to be aged in wood for a minimum of 3 years. Just wood, just 3 years. For bourbon whiskey specifically, it has to be aged in brand new oak containers that are charred on the inside. This charring caramelizes the wood sugars, and furthermore, we're only allowed to use these barrels one time. This is the only whiskey in the world that has a law that says you can only use the barrel once, okay? And that is very distinct for bourbon whiskey. Bourbon is a distinct style of whiskey. All bourbon is whiskey, but not all whiskey is bourbon. Just like all Scotch is whiskey, but not all whiskey is Scotch. Jacob Beam moved into Kentucky in 1787. Before him, though, Basil Hayden. He moved into Kentucky in 1785. He brought with him 25 families from Maryland. They were known as the Maryland Catholics, and they established the first Catholic church in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and they were distillers. Of course they were. They needed to distill to make alcohol for the sacrament, of course, right? And because they were a church, they didn't have to pay taxes, so technically they were making moonshine. Basil Hayden didn't make a drop of legal whiskey in his life. He made moonshine. Let's put this out. 2, and this was established by Basil Hayden's great-great-grandson. Sorry, one great there. His great-grandson, Colonel Raymond B. Hayden, and he legitimized the family moonshine business in 1882 by establishing the family's first legitimate distillery. And if you look at the picture of the gentleman on this bottle, his real name is Basil Hayden. It might interest you to know that there is more rye in the majority of bourbons than there is in the overwhelming majority of Canadian whiskeys, which is kind of funny because we nicknamed our whiskey rye, right? The truth is there's barely any rye in most of the Canadian whiskeys. There's 5 to 10%. So I'm going to walk you through a few things I like to do and introduce folks at the bar, as well as we do a lot of our whiskey shows. I'm going to appreciate everything with all the senses. The first thing though, I'd like you to pick up the glass, hold it up to the natural light, and inspect the color. You got this wonderful golden amber hue. This, of course, just lets us know that this whiskey has been aged in wood. Now, actually, tip your glass down at a 45-degree angle, roll it, and stand it back up. And you'll see the beads and the tears starting to form, the legs starting to run. You're going to notice this is very different than wine. The viscosity of this liquid is very different than wine, a lot more alcohol, so you're going to have a lot more tears and legs running a lot faster. But the more you have in there, that's all flavor. That is all flavor contours trapped in those tears and legs. We're talking about concentrated alcohol and concentrated flavor, so you don't have to stir it. In fact, the more you swirl, the more it's going to dissipate the flavor. So it's better to just let it rest. But then, of course, we're going to get into the nosing. And if I were to put all these whiskeys across the room and I didn't know what they were, it would be hard-pressed for me to tell you what they were or where they came from. If one was a little bit darker, I could assume it was in a sherry cask. If one was a little bit lighter, I could assume it was Irish, but I wouldn't know until I got my nose into the glass. And the nose knows. The nose is going to tell you. So what I'd like you to do is put your nose in the glass, but keep your lips parted. Breathe in through your nose and your mouth at the same time. And what's going to happen, you're going to create this vacuum effect that you can taste the base. You can taste the vanilla, you can taste the caramel, you can taste the spice before you ever get the liquid to your lips. We do make a lot of it, and this is a 4-year-old whiskey. If you look at a bottle of American spirits, whether it says bourbon or not, it will usually say just American whiskey, or it'll say straight whiskey. The word straight means that there is no additives, there's no flavor enhancers added to it. And 3% more alcohol. This is 43% alcohol, the Jim Beam Black Label. This is deeper, richer toffees and caramels than the white label. This is one of my favorites to sip and to mix, but this is actually the best value in Canada, period. This is a 6-year-old bourbon for $30 back on.
After the tasting, we got to experience some of the food at Dixies barbecue, including this purple cauliflower risotto seared scallop. This grilled beef with smoked bone marrow juice, so tender. And for dessert, a peach tart tatin with seared foie gras, pickled Concord grapes, and orange creme fraiche. By far my favorite thing of the evening. So after dinner, we were invited to come up and mix our own drinks, which I had a lot of fun doing. My drink consisted of Knob Creek 9-year-old bourbon, vanilla-infused simple syrup, chocolate bitters, habanero pepper bitters, and some chocolate shavings on top. It was so delicious. I am a big fan of spicy sweet. I love my Mexican hot chocolate, so this was the perfect drink for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope it was insightful. I know I learned a lot that evening. If you like this video, hit the subscribe button for more awesome things, and I will see you guys next time.